Venu Keller. I want to welcome you to Spanglish World Network and her network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on respective app stores and iOS Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire Sticks, Roku Sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Today, I have one of the most incredible guests, and I say this because this man has been one of my mentors, and I started to do William's work over 2 years ago. And when I first dived into his work, I was really lost because one of the things he says is that if you need to know the how, you're lost. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not going to be for me. I always need to know the how. I need to know exactly the steps to do it. But the more I dived into it, and I got one of his natural success coaches to help me realize his work, I dove deep into it. And what I realized, I said to myself, I wish I would have found William's work years ago. He's the best-selling author of Magician's Way and The Secrets to Natural Success. And the courses that William teaches are based on the secrets of natural success and helping us understand our creative genius. And one of his courses I took, which is an advanced course called Creative Warrior, he talked about a premise about the good and the bad. So before I go into that, I'm going to just let William kind of get us caught up so you guys understand the language and where we're going with this. William, thank you so much for being here, taking your time to help the audience all over the world understand one of these premises that you have taught us about.
Thanks, Venu. Really, really great to be here. And dare I mention the technical snag we had last time where I couldn't even appear, right? But we've overcome that, and here I am, and delighted to be here. And also, I don't know if I can mention that you're one of the stars of our modality. You know, we don't have many accredited coaches. It's like really a high standard. It's a very high bar to be a natural success accredited coach, someone that we will endorse, you know, and nobody pays to become a natural success coach accredited for the accreditation. It's actually an honor that's conferred on people that we know to do good work, know live the work we advocate, and have a high standing in the community, and all of that. And you qualified for that, and it's it's there are not many, right? And you're one of them. So amazing person you are, and a real privilege then to be on your show, which is also a huge success, I gather.
Yes, thank you. And it was one of my highlights of 2022 was the last email I got stating that I was congratulated to be one of the accredited coaches with natural success. So yeah, it's definitely an honor, a badge of honor that I wear very highly. So thank you for that and the teachings. And, it brings us to why I brought you here. Redefine parenting is really about helping people understand that as parents, we are here to guide our children. And during your course, Creative Warrior, there was a premise called good and bad. And one of the opportunities that I got to learn specifically from this, and this is why I wanted to bring it to our audience, because I said, this is mind blowing. When you asked us to do an exercise and you say, write down all the things that you were punished for. And I made a huge list. And you said that from the time of conception to 4 years old, we are in survival time. So anything that it's validated, we're seeing as good. And if it's not validated, we're seeing as bad.
Mm.
And then like what resists persists. And I have heard that from other mentors in my life. And I was like, okay, what resists persists. And I was trying to make logic of it. But I promise you, the day that I heard this from you to help us understand, I was like, a light bulb went off. Because it's the bad that we push away. It's the bad we want to stay away from. And it still persists in our life.
Yeah. Well, it's, I was saying to you just before we came on air, it's a very, it sounds simple. It's a very advanced principle, actually, the idea of good and bad, and the dysfunction of the dysfunctional association with the terms good and bad. If you if you someone that follows, that has some awareness of spirituality, mysticism, creativity, you're always going to find people, high level creative people, mystics, spiritual teachers, all that. It's very common for them to say, get rid of your ideas of good and bad, overcome your ideas of your judgments of good and bad, good and evil, all of that, right? And to the average person, it doesn't make sense, right? Because they go, but there is good and bad, isn't there? There is good and bad in the world, right? So how should we and why should we stop discerning good and bad? And I mean, well, you should, right? If if you really want to make a breakthrough um, in in your creative consciousness, and live life from a high level creative frequency that we're all capable of, and live a highly functional life, right? You do need to get rid of the ideas of good and bad, and let me just say that doesn't mean that you let go of discernment and discern between things that are in our highest good, not in our highest good, things that are functional, things that are dysfunctional, things that even you could say are positive, and negative, right? Doesn't mean you lose your discernment, but you see the terms good and bad are very loaded, and here's why, is because, as you alluded in your preface here, is that in our earliest years we are in a survival mode. In this sense, is we're making sense of the world from even when you're in the womb till you're about 4 or 5. You're going through a process where you're making, as I say, you're making sense of the world. You want to know how it is here, right? So that you can figure out and know how to operate here. And essentially, you're looking for validation. You're looking for, in the earliest phase, in the womb and your first couple of years, you actually look for validation from your mother, from the feminine. You're looking for nurturing. You're looking to understand or have a sense that like that you belong in the world, that you're connected, that you have a heart, your mother has a heart, that there's a channel between the two of them, and you're good here. You're good here. You're okay to be here, and that's the nurturing phase. And then you move on to the father phase, where you're looking for acknowledgement. You're looking to be seen and get a sense of that. You've got it worked out that you'll be able to bring your heart into the world. And so you're looking for validation, you're looking for acknowledgement, and really it's an energetic thing, you see, so that when there's positive validation, when your mother or father have a good feeling about you, you pick up that feeling, you go, I'm okay. And when they have a negative feeling about you, or feeling or action towards you, and there's this negative energy, and you go, I'm not okay. And so there you start going, okay, so there's times when I'm not okay, there are times when I'm okay. There's times when the way I am is okay, there are times when the way I am is not okay. And also, you see, so also, okay is tied to survival, right? Because if I'm rejected, that's not good for my survival.
Right.
If I'm accepted, that's good for my survival. So you better believe this is deeply tied to our survival. And so you learn, and look, when things are like this, my survival is assured. And when things are like this, my survival is not assured, or actually maybe it's unassured, right? You see,
Right.
the very opposite. And this is the key, that it's survival, right? So just think about it. Even now, you think about it. How do you regard something that's pro your life, and how do you regard things that are anti your life, that threaten your life? Well, you have a strong prejudice towards things that support your life and things that threaten your life. And what you've got to understand is this is happening more unconsciously, right? Where it's like the part of you that really believes that your survival is at stake. You see, um, on the surface, it might be innocuous. Someone can make a slight comment, and that really means nothing, but it's a rejection of you. And then deep down, it's like, oh, my survival is threatened. So now the point is that what you were positively validated for became associated with the idea, the concept, and even the term good. And then what you weren't validated for, what you got negative validation for, became associated with the word bad. And
Mm.
also there were consequences and punishments for bad and rewards for good, you see. And so now you have a concept that's been ingrained in you, conditioned into you, without you even knowing, that there's good and there's bad. And good is survival, bad is death. And good has positive consequences and rewards, and bad has negative consequences and punishments. And in that way, those ideas are strengthened and reinforced. And then later in life, when you consider those concepts, which you can do without even thinking, you just you look in the news and there's something about a war somewhere, and you go, that's bad. You
Right.
don't say the word bad to yourself, but it's associated with the word bad. It's like the term, the concept bad. That's bad. There's somebody who's done something. Are they bad? They're bad. And then also conversely, good, good, good. But the association with bad is it's life threatening, and good is life affirming. So, that then colors your perception, your perception of things. And it really, distorts. You live in a distorted reality anyway. Subjective reality, your everyday perception is very distorted, and it's distorted by your belief systems. It's distorted by your unconscious definitions of yourself, others in the world, that color your perception. But if your perception's distorted anyway, and so when you add good and bad to that distortion, it adds huge weight to the distortion. And what you find is those terms very much distort your perception of reality. Even good, I mean, it can be distorted. You could be assigning good to something that actually isn't good, and getting a false impression that something's good. You could be, assigning something the definition bad that actually isn't bad, but it's just really, really distorting your perception. So you're not. So if you have a distorted perception, you don't have a functional ability, to make good decisions and enact good, or functional behavior, right? And act functionally, creatively in your highest good. And so, and I've been speaking for a long time, so I'll just finish with this: is that what people find, and you found it when you do it, is when you remove good or bad of something, you really refresh the perspective of anything and have a very relevant relationship to it that's much more relevant to what's actually going on, and the truth of the matter. And so the removal of that, the mystics are right, the spiritualists are right, or the spiritual, gurus are right. They're very right. It does, to the average person, it doesn't make sense. But when you understand what they're on about, what's behind all of this, they're absolutely correct. The, it's a hack. It's a hack to a higher level creative awareness. Is that when you take good or bad of anything, you enter into a much more relevant perspective and perception of what's going on. And the more relevant your perspective, the more functional a person you are in life, right?
So this is why I love having discussion, because now I've gone even deeper from when I took the class. Because when you're talking, I was thinking that's the first judgment we actually learn as kids, is what's good, what's bad in the world. Like when we're judging people, when we're judging things, like even our kids. Like I was having this discussion with one of my clients where her son, if he messes up, he's like, oh, I'm just bad. I'm dumb. I'm bad. And it's like, where did we learn this? And it makes so much sense because we've associated bad to consequences and good to rewards. So
Yeah.
even as we have these teenagers that they're afraid to tell their parents, about their grades or a choice they made, because they know, like you said, they're going to be rejected, punished for a choice they made, because it's going to be, seemed as bad. And
Yeah.
that's why I brought you here, because this discussion is going to go even deeper. So hopefully you guys are following along, because now we're coming into, and so I'm going to use just kind of my example of the exercise that we did at Creative Warrior, when you said write a list of, what constituted as bad. So for me, it was being loud, talking too much, asking too many questions. Those are my top three things, which obviously still persists. And, but I got punished for it.
Mm.
And so then when I went to school and I wanted to raise my hand to ask a question, I'm like, oh, but am I going to get punished because I'm not supposed to ask questions? I'm not supposed to talk. So it kind of goes into that. So just kind of helping parents, because this is my outcome of this, helping us parents realize what we're punishing in our kids is not really bad. It's allowing to see the need that's underneath of why the kid is actually doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so you see, can I also just say that, when you look at when you analyze what you were conditioned to believe is good and what you're conditioned to believe is bad, I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, is that they were conditioned to believe that the truth is bad.
Yes. Some
They
people.
were, they were conditioned. Most people, the truth is bad. It's like your auntie Mavis comes around and you young and you say, "Mummy, why does Auntie Mavis smell funny?" And it's the truth. And you get into big trouble, and they're really bad consequences. And you just blanketly punished. You just blanketly punished for that. You punished for um, making people making people feel awkward or uncomfortable by the truth. But it's the truth, and the truth is obviously a very positive quality, and we all aspire to the truth. But in effect, in actions, oftentimes the truth is
Hurtful.
put in the bad basket. And then things that are actually not very functional are classed as good. If you flatter people, or whatever, right? If you're disingenuous, and you flatter and you make people feel good, but you're disingenuous, you're not really honest and all that, then that's good, right? And so as I say, it goes really deep. And then you see, then the thing is, you mentioned about teenagers and kids and teenagers, um, they feel pressure to be certain ways, right?
Right.
Because you got to be like this and like that, and not like this and not like that. And it's a very stressful time, because you sort of feel acutely a sense of there's a way you need to be. And it's like really harsh that you be exactly the way you need to be, and you don't be the way you're not supposed to be, right?
Right.
And so it's a very nervous, stressful tightrope walk for young people, even for adults, but especially kids, because they figuring out getting along in the world and fitting into the world, and becoming part of the world, and they want to fit in. And so then there's these notions of how you need to be, and their need to fulfill that, and really being very down on themselves, acutely down on themselves. The punishment that was external, they now internalize and punish themselves for not being the right way. You see, for not
100%.
being good and for being bad, right? Because what's good is, well, all the ways you're supposed to be, and what's bad, all the ways you're not supposed to be. And the consequences are death or life. And so if they, you see, I'm not, I don't know what the solution is, right? Because there's always going to be um, this concept of good and bad. We will not eradicate it, right? It'll always be there. But certainly, its effect is that we're subject to that notion, and then it really hurts us, right? Because we need to be good and not be bad in whatever our concept of that is, which is largely unconscious. But when a person, or to the person that is able to go, to acknowledge that things are a certain way, that whatever they are, and that it's not good or bad, huge freedom has come to that person, because things are what they are, and they objectively useful or not useful, or whatever, right? But they're not good or bad, not in the psychological sense that we impose on them, right? That they're not good or bad. That's just how it is. And when something's just how it is, it can be acknowledged, and it can be acknowledged for what it is, and for its usefulness or unusefulness, and very easily accepted and changed. Um, but when that label of good and bad is imposed on it, as I said, it hugely distorts our perception of the nature of whatever it is, the event, the behavior, the trait, whatever. It really distorts it, and it really darkens it, so that it's kind of something that mustn't exist. It's something that mustn't exist. And so then there's the denial of it. There's the resistance to it, and what that does is just intensifies the dynamic. It doesn't solve the dynamic. When you or I or a kid goes, I mustn't be that way, you can be sure that it's hurting us to be that way, and our sense of how negative it is. It distorts how negative it is, And it makes us resist and deny and not want that to be that way. But you know, our focus creates our reality. So then there's this intense focus on whatever it is, which just causes it to persist. It causes the hurt to hurt even more. It causes the behavior to persist even more. Right?
Can you give it like a story of an example so people can understand this in a story pattern? Kind of like what you said, like with Aunt Mavis. It's like she stinks. Well, don't tell her that. You'll get in trouble because you don't want to hurt her feelings for telling the truth. So taking a concept of like what we resist persists. Is there some type of story you could tell us so we can really understand the effects of what you're saying, of how it still persists when we're resisting it?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I've got a lot of stories, but the one that the one that springs to mind is as a woman who did my trainings back in the day. I used to do these year-long trainings. Can you believe it, right? I mean, you weren't there every day of the year. It was a weekend every year, and people came and it was residential, and you stayed and trained in all of this work. I mean, practically what you've done, but in more concentrated immersions, you've done it in. We did it over a year, and so anyway, there was a lady there who was there, right, and lovely soul, by the way, beautiful person, right, but she was very annoying because she'd always arrive before anyone else to make sure she got a front row seat, and she ate lollies. Do you use it? Do you know what lollies are? Do you use
Yeah.
that term,
Yeah.
lollies? You know,
Yeah.
sweets, like, right? So she would eat lollies. She'd sit right in front of me where I was presenting, and eat lollies all day, non-stop, right? And she favored this particular kind of lolly that was chocolate coated and came wrapped. Each one came individually wrapped in like a crinkly foil wrapper, right? And then it was that they were in a large packet of foil, a big tin foil. And so she'd always rummage through because she had her favorite type as well. So she would rummage through all the time, making this racket, rummaging through, then open them and then pop them in her mouth and suck loudly on them, right? You know, and it was just so annoying. But you see, okay, so that's funny. But what was that about? Something very sad and painful. Because you know you've done. I think everyone here has most probably been in some kind of workshop or other, or and it's not just all happy stories. We look at stuff. We look at things, and we look at ways that work for us and ways that don't work, and so we're inevitably confronted. And certainly, I think you'd appreciate in the work you've done with me. You know, you take
You
a
call
good
us
look at
out.
yourself,
You call
and you
us
know,
out.
it's not a conflict-free environment. You know, you know, things come up for you, right? And so too with her. But she had a belief, you see, that her feelings were bad. Sorry, not all feelings. That her negative feelings. So when she was a child, when she felt bad, she was shamed, she was punished, she was you know, as we say in Australia, she was rubbished. You're made to feel like rubbish for being that way. She was what we also say, you were cruel, you were rubbished, you were punished for whenever she felt bad. So you see, she's now defined negative emotions as bad, as bad. I mean, and as you can appreciate, you see, here's the thing: emotions aren't bad, whether they're heavy or light or whatever. They're emotions. They tell us that, you know, they tell us how we're going,
Right.
and you know, would be like saying. It's bad to be told we're going in the wrong direction. You know, somebody says, "Hey, you're going in the wrong direction." Oh my God, that's bad. Well, they're feelings we have that tell us, "Oh, you're going in the wrong direction," right? And so they're bad. So they're defined as bad. And so she's not allowed to have bad feelings, right? And so she's in a workshop now and looking at herself and whatever. And of course, she's having strong emotional experiences throughout the process. She's not allowed to have them. So she does what a lot of people do with bad emotions. She uses sugar to suppress them, right? But the trouble is with sugar, it suppresses things for a while, but then intensifies it because it takes you up and then it drops you down and you feel even worse. And so then she had to eat more, right? And then that didn't do good for her health and her physique and all of that, which she then hated, which she felt bad about, but she wasn't allowed to feel that, so she ate more chocolate, right, and sweets. And so and just intensified the cycle because she was resisting feeling bad, but she just felt worse and worse and worse all the time. And she cried a lot of the time. She'd burst out crying a lot of the time, right? And had feelings of self-loathing and all of this, all of which really just stemmed from she wasn't allowed to feel bad. If she was allowed to feel bad, then she wouldn't hurt herself with her diet. She'd be okay. She wouldn't like have self-loathing, a whole lot of consequences that just stemmed from she's not allowed to feel bad. The consequences were terrible. And so that was bad. She wasn't allowed to feel good, not allowed to feel good, created really bad consequences, and bad consequences are bad. So that's even worse, right? So no, I'm not killing you. This person, I mean, of course, doing the work really helped her because otherwise she could have, sorry to say this, I don't know if I can say this. Is it okay to say? But I mean, she could have really harmed herself,
Right.
and taken the ultimate act of self-harm, right? Yeah, she was
Well,
very in danger. But and so that's an example. That will that do?
yeah, no, that's good. And I think that, you know, because I'm thinking, so I work with a lot of kids that self harm, even like literally self harm, like cut
Mm,
themselves and stuff.
mm, mm,
And it's a release. It's definitely a release because they're suppressing what they feel. It's hurting inside. They don't know how to release that pain because it's like if they talk about it, they get punished somehow, some way. They see it as bad. Like, and that's the whole purpose of bringing me here to help people understand. Like, even when I understood this, and I get what you say, there's no way of fixing it, but in a sense, it is. As us parents can now know, if we know better, we can do better. So, like, even when I'm talking to my younger children and I'm punishing them for something they're doing bad, there's something in my head that I'm asking myself now is like, so what am I telling her then? What am I telling her she's not allowed to feel, do, or say?
mm, mm.
What am I associated now that's bad? Because I already know from doing your work that she's going to learn how to resist it. She's going to learn how to cover it up so she doesn't get punished for it anymore, but it's still going to persist some other way, just like you talked about in that story. So it's bringing the knowledge to us parents of, like you said, it's not like our parents had us and said, I'm going to teach them that they're bad. It's the nature of the beast of teaching, raising our kids, guiding them, because we do need to teach our kids danger. We need to teach them what to stay away from, like stranger danger. That's bad to go in a
Mhm.
stranger's car, you know? So there's certain boundaries. But I think like what you're teaching, and at least what I got out of it, and that's why it was so important to bring you here, because I was like, it was an aha moment of really recognizing what are we really defining as good and bad as we're raising our children.
Mm.
And if they continue to resist it and it still persists, how is it going to show up later in their life, like the person you were talking about that was
Yeah,
actually self-harming with eating?
yeah, yeah, that's right. So I even, being a workshop facilitator, and you facilitate processes and people share things, and they haven't quite got it, they've missed the point, and you correct them, and you can just see and you can feel they go, well, they just missed the point. But they go, well, I'm bad, right? So I'm bad. Everyone here in the workshop saw that I missed the point. I'm bad, and or they behave certain ways, or things are revealed about them. They realize certain beliefs they have, behaviors they have, all of that. And they feel bad, right? And it's just very important to let people know that they're not bad. Because what happens, you see people, they realize patterns that they have, dysfunctional patterns they have, behaviors they have, ideas they have, misconceived ideas and concepts and all of that we're all subject to. As Bob Dylan says, their minds are filled with big ideas, images, and distorted facts. That's all of us, right?
True.
And instead of people going, oh, well, my distortion and misconceptions and dysfunction have been revealed to me. Fantastic. I don't, now I don't have to do that. Instead of, seeing it as a positive, people go, well, I'm bad because I've been doing that for all these years. I'm bad. And then just want to shut down and not face it, right? Like, oh, I'm bad, right? So they don't want to embrace the acknowledgement that will set them free, right?
Right.
Instead they shut down, and then they're just going to perpetuate it. So it's just very important to assure people that they're not bad because of that. It's, yeah, you did that, you think that, you've thought that, you've demonstrated that, but you're not bad. Yeah, it's that what you demonstrate, what you misconceived, all that is not useful to you, but it's not bad. And so the same thing, I think, with kids. And I'm not a parenting expert, but I am a parent, right? And I'm laughing because I'm just thinking of the joyful ride of parenting for over 20 years, right? I am a parent, but I'm not a parenting expert. But I am a parent, as I say, and also, you see, to me, with anyone, and especially kids, we can teach everybody to see what they're up to, see where they're coming from, see what's useful about their behavior, see what's not useful about their behavior, what's functional, what's dysfunctional, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, all of that, right? But it's not bad. It's
So
not bad.
what about people, I mean, that haven't done your work, so they don't understand the whole logic of our thoughts and feelings aren't real and the whole baseline foundation. So if like teachers are listening to this and they're like, but I have a kid in my class that's really bad. He disrupts class. He doesn't listen. He curses at me. He hits people. This behavior is bad.
No, it's disruptive. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not. It's not. I mean, you could go, well, they got a gun. You go, okay, that's threatening your life, right? But generally, you see, it's not bad. It's disruptive. It's unuseful. We're not taking that off the table. We're not going, oh, it doesn't matter that this kid's got Tourette syndrome and you know, ADDH and jumping around and, really disrupting things and creating problems. Um, they have a problem, they are a problem, but they're not bad. Because you see, the term bad, what I'm trying to point out is they are what they are. And whether it's functional or dysfunctional, and let's say it's highly dysfunctional, right? And highly unuseful and highly inappropriate. But you see, when you introduce the term bad, then you're introducing a higher distortion of the situation and what's going on. And that's when you're going to make it personal and not objective. And that's when your most extreme beliefs and definitions and meanings are going to be triggered that you are going to project onto that situation.
Mm.
And you will not deal with that situation in terms of the relevance of the situation. You'll deal with it in terms of your projections, which aren't happening. And when you deal with things in life that aren't happening, it's it's highly dysfunctional. You get highly dysfunctional results. Like if you walked out into traffic with the distortion that there's no traffic, that would be disastrous, right?
Yes.
You see? Or if you wanted to cross the road and there's no traffic, but you're projecting there's traffic, you're not going to cross the road when you couldn't cross the road. So it's highly dysfunctional to project onto reality what isn't taking place in reality, and particularly highly distorted ideas about what's happening, you see. And you mentioned teachers, and I've helped a lot of teachers, a lot. I had a teacher, a friend of mine, who wanted to quit teaching because they had to go on stress leave. Teaching stressed them out so much. And they love teaching, by the way. And they're a really cool person who taught a very cool subject. But to a big class of 14, 15-year-olds, and as I think anyone listening here might appreciate or will appreciate, that's a highly hormonal age, can we
Oh
call
yeah.
it, right? Yeah, you see. And so dealing with a lot of raging hormones out in front of her, right? And loved teaching, loved her subject, but got sick and went on what they call stress leave, and came back after 6 months. But before she came back to teaching, she already got sick again, just at the thought of going back into that environment. And she did some classes with me where I helped her pull her projections back, you see, and deal with things that just, yeah, things are going on, but just deal with what's actually going on and the relevance of it. And if you do that, you will automatically, instinctively, intuitively actually know how to handle those things appropriately. But if you have a distorted impression of what's going on, you're going to deal with it in a distorted way, and it's not going to help. You're going to be
Right.
pouring petrol on the fire, right? Gasoline on the fire. You're going to be putting the fire out with gasoline, right? And so she went back with these new tools of just dealing with reality for what it was. And it's a much less charged situation.
Right.
Much less charged. And then she could be stern when it was called for, be light, joke when it was called for, and all that. And then she ended up having a really good relationship with her class because she was dealing with them appropriately rather than through her projections. And what I mean, there's different things that cause projection, right? But one of the things that I helped her with was good and bad. And so then when there's disruptions in the class, she go, little bastard, he's acting out, but he's not bad.
Right.
But when he was bad, he's threatening her life.
Mm.
You see,
I
and that's
do.
stressful, isn't it? If a person in front of you is a threat to your life, that's stressful.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
agree. And I've always said too, and so now it's taken even a step further. I always said to, especially because I have kids that are 28, 24, and then I have 10-year-old twins. And so the way I raise them is totally different than the way I raise my twins. And, my husband and I always say, like, you are not good or bad. We've never called our kids good or bad. But then we said the choices they made were good and bad. And then after I took your class, I'm like, oh gosh, now I got to reframe that because it's not good. It's not good and bad now. It's just a choice they made.
Yeah.
And is it going to be productive towards what they want, or is it not? And is it disruptive, or is it not, like you're saying? And the other thing that I pick up on this as well is one of the things that I've been helping parents realize too, is that a lot of the behaviors that our kids display is really just kind of clues to what's really going on. They're just symptoms of to what the cause is underneath. And I think it goes back to what you were saying is what we resist persists, because they found other coping ways to release what they've been pushing down, not wanting to be, because they've been punished so much for it. And so now it's come up in these different inappropriate, as you said, behaviors, not bad behaviors. We're not calling them bad. They're inappropriate, disruptive behaviors.
Yeah. I mean, so that's a good point, you see, because um, the very notion, unconscious notion of good and bad can be what intensifies bad behaviors or negative behaviors, so-called bad behaviors, and it is what can cause them to persist and intensify, right? Because I'm not supposed to be that way, so I'm
Right.
trying to avoid being that way, and that's a terrible way of living. Is a terrible way of living, and a terribly ineffective, uncreative way of living, where you live your life by avoiding being or avoiding um, avoiding being a certain way, avoiding things being a certain way, avoiding certain conditions, in other words, which can be behaviors or situations or circumstances. And that's the typical way that a person lives their life, is by avoidance, actually.
Right.
And what we avoid is getting our energy, getting our attention. So that's what gets created. What our focus creates our reality. And if we're avoidant, well, that's getting our focus. We can think we want this and that, but really the energy is going into what we avoid. And so that's what persists, rather than having our focus trained on what matters to us, what we love, what who we are, what gifts and talents we are, what we could express, all of that. That's what our attention should be put on. That's what children's attention should be put on. It's what everyone's attention should be put on.
And that's what, even as I coach, that's what I always focus on when the parents are coming and saying, my child's acting this way and that way. I always say, but what's your end result? What is it that you really want? Because we've been putting the focus on the negative behavior, the inappropriate behavior, the disruptive behavior, or what parents call the bad behavior. And I think parents, and I'm included, we've made good and bad our measurement tool.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if it's good, then we can relax, they're okay. But if they're bad, oh my gosh, they need all of our attention. And then what happens is, like you say, that focus makes that bad behavior, because that's what we've called it now, grow, intensify, and it just starts the whole cycle over. So it's really, like you said, knowing what it is that you want, whether it's in especially in ourselves, but also in our children. What would we love for our children to be and act and do, and hold the tension for that, instead of being redirected to all the obstacles of what we're calling the bad behavior. I mean, I think that's kind of what you were saying. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. So, sorry, my phone rang. I forgot to switch it off. I do apologize. That startled me. Um, no, that's right. And you see, I mean, this dysfunctional living is really a function of assuming there's a way we're supposed to be and trying to control ourselves to be that way. And I think dysfunctional parenting is a function of just wanting to, and believing that that's what it's about, and wanting to control our children. And you see, how we're going to control our kids. We're going to control them to fit into our conditioned sense of good and bad. You see, our conditioned sense of good and bad, which has nothing to do with them. It's not who we're not relating to who. See, it goes back to the relevance again, What's the relevance of this person in front of us, before us? What's the relevance of the situation? Who are they? What are they about? And
Mm,
serving that, and supporting them in serving that, and making it about that. And yeah, it can be uncomfortable because it comes with lack of control, to some extent. And I'm not talking against structure. I'm not talking against boundaries, but I'm talking against control. I'm talking about just premeditated control, right? Um, and I'm speaking up for dealing with the relevance of the person we're dealing with, and know we have the same children, the same mother and father, and we got these children. They're all different. They're all different, right? They're all unique, and it's like, what are what are they about, right? And serving them. And as I was just going to say, it comes with some tension. It comes with some discomfort, because there's tension, right? And it raises unconscious alarm bells of our conditioning, of our beliefs and all that. And well, that's just something we got to hang out with if we mean to be creative people, and can I say functional positive parents, right? Because that tension, that discomfort, and that where we hang out with it is highly rewarding, highly rewarding. And there's another misconception, you see. It's one of the greatest misconceptions. It's off topic, I admit. I'm going to admit that it's off topic, but we're subject to a lot of misconceptions. And here's a huge misconception. Tension is bad. Conflict is bad. It's good stuff. Conflict and tension is good stuff. When we hold it, it creates highly creative energy, right? And it also is a marvelous tool for self-awareness. When we hang out with the conflict, instead of trying to resolve it and clamp it down to that, if we hang out with it, we become very aware in so many ways. We blessed with huge realizations, awarenesses that we have no idea about when we just march along in control of everything. Yeah.
Well, that was a great way to end the show. We're at time. William, thank you so much for being here and this knowledge. If you want to find out more information, go to Natural Success. You can Google William Whitecloud. He has plenty of events coming up online. His books are amazing. It goes into more of this stuff in all of his books. I'm telling you guys, do yourself a favor. If you want the life changes to be impactful in your life, please check this man out. Look at his stuff, because it's the work, and he's the conduit of his own work. And we're blessed. I'm blessed to have you as my mentor, William. Thank you so much for being here. If you're finding value in the conversation here on our show, please join Redefine Parenting Group on Facebook for even more tips and conversation. Do someone you know a favor and share my group with them as well, so they too can hear what they need to in order to feel supported in their parenting journey. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.